I'm Barry Farber, and this is Diamonds in the Rough. It's a program featuring ordinary people, I don't know about that, but who've achieved extraordinary success. And it's about people who have adversity in their lives. Adversity from physical, mental, financial, doesn't matter, but what they've learned from those lessons, how they've used that to kind of propel them forward. Well, what would you say about somebody who reads an average of 4 books each night? 4 books. Could read a novel in 15 minutes with remarkable retention. Can memorize 4 decks of cards at once. And because of this, is actually banned from many casinos. He's established a record on television with appearances of 88 Johnny Carson shows, 118 Mike Douglas shows, who Mike Wallace says he's either a scientific entertainer or an entertaining scientist. Well, I would call this person amazing. As a matter of fact, I'd call this person the amazing Kreskin, and it's great to have you here.
Barry, I want to tell you.
Yeah, okay, you're going to kill my mic.
I'm looking at the, by the way, folks, you got to understand, I'm looking at the teleprompter, and I give Barry a lot of credit. It had Barry's name, it said ad lib, and my God, I can have
you know, the first time I met you, I went home, I didn't have an arm.
You just knocked the sound out, but that's all right. It's nice to see you, and I'm happy about this.
It's great to have you.
It's a great project.
Well, anybody who, you know, the show's about people using their mind more efficiently, and here's a person, you know, let's start out with this, because I think a lot of people know what you've done and what you've accomplished, and it's just amazing to me.
You got even the numbers.
I mean, look at me.
You got the number of shows.
Oh, my friend.
I just did a few weeks ago my 108th show with Regis and Kathy Lee, you know, and of course Regis and I go all the way back to the Joey Bishop days when he was an announcer. So someday I got to put down all the stories, the behind-the-scene incidents that happened that no one would ever believe. The time I talk about the power of the mind, I walked into NBC, and it was a Carson show, and I was supposed to get there an hour and a half early. I never did a rehearsal, but they said, well, doing this with Johnny, I mean, you're going to have to go through it one time. NBC didn't want to do it. They didn't want me to do it. And Johnny says, no, I'll do it. I didn't get there on time. Something happened, Barry, and it was like only 20 minutes before showtime, and I said to his secretary, I said, I got to see Johnny. She said, nobody does. She's Kreskin. I said, I have to. I've got to give him a mindset.
What do you mean nobody does? He was in his dressing room, or
no? What was secret, always secret to Johnny's show was the monologue, and he worked on it passionately. And those minutes and so forth before the show were him alone. I can understand this because I've got to be alone for an hour before the program. A lot of people would rather say I should be alone for the whole day. But anyway, I said, I can't do what we're going to do. She says, wait a minute. And she walked to an area of NBC I never was at, and she came back. She said, come with me. And she's walking. She says, you know, Kreskin, she says, I've worked for him, I don't know how many years. Nobody has ever walked in to see Johnny 12 minutes before we're going on the air. And I walk in, and there's his office, and it's dark, and there's a light on the table, and one other light over his shoulder. And it was the script for his monologue, which he worked on with great integrity and devotion. He looked at me, I said, John, I'm going to do this with you. Look at me. I only talked to him for about 2 minutes. He says, I got a Kreskin. I walked away, and we went on our way, and she says, I don't believe it. And on the air, what happened was, I said, Johnny, there's no hypnotic trance. You know the business of people between 2 chairs? He said, yes. And I could see an NBC official in the background looking like this, and probably was wiping his brow. All I can tell you is, because it's going in the Smithsonian magazine next week. Wow. They finally got pictures of that scenario. I had Carson stand, close his eyes. 30 seconds later, they were closed. Ed McMahon, Doc Severinsen, and I lifted him up, stretched him between 2 chairs, his head on one, his feet in the other, and Bette Midler, and she didn't want to do it, came over and sat on him. And when it was all over, he said to me, he says, you know, I would have sworn it was like a little baby. He says, I know Bet was on before you, and I hear you saying you're going to sit on Carson's thinking, damn it, Kreskin, if I break my back, you're in trouble. But to talk about how powerful a mindset was that 2 minutes before the show. And I couldn't have done it without it. I couldn't, not even though all I said to him was, Johnny, listen to me, trust me, I'm going to take you, and I'm not going to hypnotize you, as it was always done with hypnosis. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm listening. There's the power of the mind. A lot of people think there's you're a psychic, a trick. And when I say trick to you, you tell me.
Carson would have been furious because he never rigged anything. And when it was all over, we got mail a few days later from the most intellectually obtuse profession that I know of, that psychiatrist. And they said, and I have some friends who are psychiatrists, and most of them are loony, but we know each other. And they said, oh, you hypnotized Carson for the show. You were very dishonest and not telling the public. He was so angry that he repeated the show 1 month later, and he never repeated the show until 2 years later. But he said, I wasn't hypnotized, but it worked.
Now, let me
ask, the mind, the power of his thinking, and all I did was tap into it. I didn't do anything to him. There was no psychic influence or power. It's just that everyone watching can think of incidents in their lives that seem almost unexplainable and dramatic things that you can hear. Talk to firemen. I love to talk to firemen because they will tell you stories of people who carried refrigerators out of burning buildings. Out of buildings, they're safes. And then when it's all over and the hysteria, the horror of losing part of a home or a business is gone, they'll say, well, how in the world did you do this? I didn't do that.
It's amazing what the mind can do under great stress.
Lift the car off of a loved one. Don't go trying this with someone you don't like.
No.
Just leave the car there.